So, it's another thread going around in the vinyl community and beyond. Um, and I have to say, I've really enjoyed watching some of these videos. There's certain channels maybe you watch a lot. There's certain channels I watch fairly regularly. Most of the episodes I'll watch if it's topics I'm really interested in, and it's interesting getting videos like these that are sort of part autobiographical, and part music, and sort of how that music helps tell the story. And I think this was started by Pete Pardo over at Sea of Tranquility. I'm not sure, but he did 20 of them. Melinda Murphy did 10. I saw Mazzy do a dozen. Lost Mixtapes did 10. Rob Parker, I think, did 10. So those are some of the ones I've watched. And they've been great. And the idea is, whatever number you pick, I'm going to go 14. But however many number albums that changed your life. So let's do it. Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks. And like I said, this is going to be, for me, 14 albums that changed my life. Now, my hesitation in doing this video, there was a thread that went around a while back called the 10 albums you've listened to the most. And it was a year ago at least. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But I was thinking, is there too much overlap here? I actually went back and kind of looked at my video that I did in that thread. And there is some overlap here. But yeah, I think this is from a different direction. And I got to tell you, I have reacted pretty, I don't know, emotionally, strongly. That's the right word. But really gotten into a lot of these videos in this thread. Because people really kind of laid out, parts of their lives and how this music intersected with those parts. And how, And yeah, I've got some stories to tell. So I decided I really wanted to do this, even though I have talked about some of these albums before, obviously. So I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. When we get to an album that I have covered several times already, I'll try and make it very quick and maybe just reference some stuff. I'll try and spend a little more time on some of the music that I haven't talked about as much. Okay. And just again, the idea of this whole thread, I think, these aren't necessarily favorites. These are albums or songs. I've got a couple, at least one is just a song that had a huge impact. I mean, the idea, changed your life. I mean, change it in the same sense as, having a child or changing careers, maybe not. But, music, if it is an essential part of your life, it is me, it's why I do this. You spend a lot of your life listening to, studying, or in some cases, like trying to play and even write, music. And so, yeah, I mean, it can have a huge impact on your life. And so we're going to go through this chronologically, not chronologically as in release date, but chronologically to try and kind of tell a story of sort of when each of these things impacted my life. So I picked 14 albums that changed my life, at least my musical life. How about that? So number one is a song. And the song I picked, or the reason I picked this song, is this is the first rock song that I can remember ever having an emotional reaction to. I mean, so obviously, I was a little kid, and this is the first song I can remember having a reaction to, and it was a strong reaction. I think I've loved music ever since, and it's from an artist I don't listen to a ton. I only have one of his albums, and it's the one album that everybody has, which is Peter Frampton. Frampton Comes Alive. And I'm not picking this album because honestly, this album hasn't had a huge impact on me. There's just one song on here that did, but it's on here. And so that's why I kind of have this for the visual. But it's really the song, not the whole album. Although this album, I actually just put it on like today because I was like, I haven't listened to this in a long time and it really is good. But this one song had the impact. And that would be Show Me the Way, which obviously was on one of his studio. I don't even remember. I don't even know which one. I don't have his studio albums, but it's the live version that's on here that got a lot of the airplay. And I'm positive it's a live version from this that I heard when I was a kid that had such an impact. I mean, great song. I still a great song. Just great melody. You know, the he's not really using the talk. Is he using the talk box on that? Whatever that effect that he has on the guitar is pretty cool. But it's just a great chorus, and I mean everything. Great song. I would have been about 5 or 6 years old when that song was big, and when I heard it, and it had that impact on me. Yeah, I told you guys I grew up in Houston, and our family would go up, if you know that area at all in Texas, up I-45 about an hour north of Houston. There's Lake Conroe, and some areas like around there. And a lot of people in the Houston area drive up there to, it's a lake. You hang out, you do stuff. And my family, when I was real little, we used to drive up there all the time. And there was this stand of trees along the interstate. That part of Texas has a lot of pine trees. There's this stand of really just real distinctive kind of pine trees, along the interstate, real close to Conroe. So when I was little and we hit those pine trees, I always knew, oh, we're almost there. I always knew we were almost there. And I guess for some reason, a couple of times, my older siblings maybe had the radio on or something, and that song was on when we hit that stretch of highway, at least a couple times, to where something in my little head, associated that song with these. I used to call that group of trees my favorite trees because I loved going by them and all that. To where it just got in my head, like I had to hear that song when we hit those trees almost to the lake. And like I remember when I was a little kid, like asking my siblings, like my favorite song, or could play the song, my favorite trees song, or I don't think I even knew. I was 5 or 6, whatever. I didn't know the name of the song, and I just had this real distinct memory. And you know how music can have that trigger. So to this day, it's like I hear that song and I'm sort of taken back to, late 70s Texas, driving up to the lake. Yeah, but I have it on this list, the song, because that is the earliest, like I said, rock song I can remember having any sort of emotional reaction to. All right, my number 2 choice is a soundtrack. And I have talked about this before. It's been a while, though, since I brought this up. So there's a lot of you guys who maybe subscribed or started watching later didn't hear me talk about this before. I'll try and make this quick. But this would be the first full record that I think I was obsessed with. And it's the Star Wars soundtrack. Written, conducted by John Williams, of course, 1977. And this is not my original version because that's one of the I actually played that thing to death and wore it out. So, I had to buy a new soundtrack, since then. For whatever reason, my age, I'm that perfect age for the original Star Wars trilogy, right? That's just part of my DNA, like it is some of you guys, Gen X guys, right? But yeah, this music especially just enthralled me. Still does. I think it's a wonderful, astounding work, and it's so evocative of the film. I don't know if you ever watched the film Star Wars. Of course you have. What am I saying? But have you ever thought when you're watching, the original film, A New Hope, what do you want to call it nowadays? There's very little film at all where there's not music going. I mean, the music is almost in every scene. I don't know if there's any scene where there is complete silence without a soundtrack. So this double album soundtrack really covers most of the film time. And you got to remember back in the day, before DVDs, before streaming, or Disney Plus, back in the days of VHS. Well, George Lucas stubbornly refused to release any of the Star Wars movies on VHS, at least for a decade, until the 1990s. And so you couldn't just pull up Star Wars on demand and watch it when you wanted to back in the day. So, when I was a kid, I had this. I would sit there for hours and just listen to this and replay the film in my head. So this was the first full record, and it's a double, right? That sort of got me obsessed. Now, the first rock record that I was obsessed with, and this was my first favorite band. This band was the first band I got into. It was in the late '70s, so I still would have been really young. And well, Kiss and Kiss Alive 2. This would have been the album. Oh man, when you're a kid, those pictures are so evocative. I mean, it's just yeah. Kiss Alive 2. That's about the age that I sort of discovered Kiss. And yeah, so for me, when I was a kid, it was as much about the makeup and the marketing and the lunch boxes and all the stuff as it was the music. But I also did love the music, and I will tell you, I'm still a huge Kiss fan. I love Kiss, love Kiss. But yeah, I mean, how much did I love Kiss? Well, editor can show you. This is Christmas somewhere in the late '70s. Yeah, thanks to my sister who did that to me. But I got a Kiss makeup kit for Christmas that year. It's the happiest kid in Texas. All right. Anyway, so Kiss was my first band I was into, and the reason I picked this record is I think this was my first major Kiss record that I owned that I can remember at least. It was around this time. So I think it was either this or Love Gun, but I think it was Alive too. It was my first Kiss record. So yeah, there you go. All right, number four. Number four, I have talked about a bit, but it's been a while. Now this would be my first non-Kiss record, and so how about this was the first band I really got into? This would be the early '80s. First band I got into, like for purely musical reasons. Let's put it that way. And there's actually, I forgot to pull the other one out. There were two records my first records that I ever got outside of Kiss and Star Wars and whatever, like rock pop records. It was this one, and then give me a sec. I got to pull the other one off the shelf here because I forgot. I want to show you both, but I'll talk about one. So these are the first two records. Was Men at Work, Business as Usual, their debut, and then the Duran Duran debut. Love both, but the one that I kind of had a special, really relationship. Oops, sorry. I just hit the mic. With was Men at Work, Business as Usual. I still am a Men at Work fanatic. I mean, they only put out three studio records before they broke up. So it's really Colin Hay, who was the lead singer of Men at Work, who has had a excellent career since then. I've followed it closely. I've gone to see him many times. I've shown this, but there's me and Colin Hay. He usually hangs out after shows, and he's a real cool dude. He'll sign autographs and chat with you. And I've had long chats with him after shows. And I mean, for me, this might as well have been meeting, Elvis Presley or something, whatever. I mean, for me, because I just love Men at Work and still love Colin Hay. Admire the hell out of the guy. And yeah, this record, this is the first, again, non-Kiss record that I really got obsessed with, and then just sort of still do know every nook and cranny of it, every second. I know of this record. All right, number five, the first concert I ever attended. I remember this well. Was Dire Straits on the Brothers in Arms tour, August of 1985, Southern Star Amphitheater, Houston, Texas. No longer there, but it was this concert venue attached to Astro World, which is also no longer there. Amusement park, right? Man, I saw some great shows growing up at that Southern Star Amphitheater. And my first concert ever, my sister took me to a lot of shows when I was young. My sister took me with her boyfriend at the time. Three of us went. I don't remember the dude's name. But three of us went, and yeah, just blew me away. And the reason I'm mentioning this is my pick is a bootleg of that show, which is commonly available because it was one of those shows that, in the '80s, remember in the '80s they used to broadcast, concerts on radio nationwide, and so people would bootleg and tape them off the radio. Well, this Houston show that I was at happened to be broadcast nationally on the radio, and so there's a ton of bootlegs of it. Go on YouTube, just type in Dire Straits Houston 1985. My whole show is there, and great sound, by the way. Um, that's actually how I listen to it mostly now. I'll go back and listen to it all the time. It's on YouTube, and it's to this day, it's an incredible show. It's awesome. But yeah, I remember going there. It's just I've never been to a concert before. It was this astounding experience, and the you know, I do remember the people in front of us. We were all on the hillside, people in front of us, on the right of us, and on the left of us. Each were indulging in something to smoke. I remember that distinct aroma. I was like, what is that? My sister just like, don't worry about it. But so anyway, but the show was amazing. The show was, as you can go on YouTube and listen to yourself. It's amazing. Listen to Wild West End. That is still incredible. So years later, real quick on this story. Years later, I'm visiting my brother up in Colorado, and looking through his tapes. He's got a bunch of cassette tapes, and I see these two tapes. It's actually these exact tapes because he gave them to me. So these two tapes, and on them it says Dire Straits in concert, and I was like, what's that? Yeah, look at that. I love Dire Straits at that point. I was like, oh yeah, that was some show that was on the radio. Like from Houston, I think. Yeah, and they were broadcasting it, so I just put some tapes in and just recorded off the radio. I was like, I was at that show. He had no idea. It was funny because he was in Colorado at the time. He's like, he had no idea my sister and I had gone to that show. So he very generously gave me these tapes, and later I got some stereo equipment where I could transfer the cassettes to digital and put them on CDs so I could kind of preserve. And actually, these tapes really good sound, and so the CDs I have are really good sound. Now, another highly bootleg show from that same tour was, I think it was the night after. It was in San Antonio. And recently, I did find, this is Dire Straits in San Antonio. Also on vinyl, 2 records. Dire Straits live in San Antonio the night after the Houston show that I saw. So I've got the San Antonio show the night after on vinyl. Of course, I have my show on cassette and CD that I burned. And you can find it on YouTube and everything else. All right. Number 6. I'm trying to speed this up here. I don't want these to go too long. Number 6. Got to go with Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA. Now, there's a couple of other these shows I saw. This was also a pick, especially maybe people around my age. Not my favorite Springsteen album. It's probably 4 or 5 that I prefer. Go back to my Springsteen rankings, you'll see. But this is albums that change your life. This is the album where I first got on board with Springsteen. And ever since, he's been one of my very favorite artists. And I don't know, where I really went all in and got obsessed with an artist. Another concert story. My 2 brothers, the one in Colorado and then another one were, I don't know, in Houston or something. I don't remember all the details. I was little. I was young. Well, I was in middle school. But anyway. I think I was in middle school. And they got tickets to go see Springsteen in Dallas on the Born in the USA tour. And I remember they came home from buying the tickets, and I was like incensed. I was furious. I was like, I want to go. Why didn't you? And they're like, oh man, we didn't even think about it. So, I don't know, I was this little kid brother, right? It's like, we didn't know you'd want to go. We didn't think about it. Like, are you freaking serious? I had a Springsteen shrine on an entire wall in my bedroom. It was covered. There was no wall showing. It was covered with news clippings and magazine. Just Bruce. You didn't think I'd want to go see Springsteen? Freaking morons. Anyway, so my brothers, judging by my reaction, we're like, oh man, we're sorry. And to their credit, we went back. They went to some ticket agency or whatever, secondhand. Went back and say, hey, is there another ticket right there? And amazingly, there was a third ticket, right next to the other 2 they just bought. So I went and grabbed that ticket, and I went to see Springsteen on the Born in the USA tour in Dallas, Texas Stadium. And that was more than a concert. That was like an event. I have vivid memories of sitting in that before he even came out. Just the vibe in that whole stadium was electric. I've ever felt that since. And then when he came out, it was just like pandemonium. It was, oh, I just have, I've been hooked ever since. So started with this. So all right, another one I've shown and talked about a lot. So I will very quickly just reiterate. Neil Young and Crazy Horse Live Rust. This is the one that first got me into Neil. Why it's really important and life changing, so to speak, is this is a song off of here, Comes a Time. So I know that song was on Comes a Time, but the version that's on here, um, that's the first song I ever learned how to sing and play on my own, like on my guitar and all that. And that was obviously kind of a revelatory moment for me that, I can play music, I can sing music, and later maybe I can write music. And so, yeah, that's, also this just close to my heart, but that's a huge reason for that one. Okay, I've talked about that one enough. Oh, another one I've talked about way too much, and so I'm just going to show it and kind of move on. But I've talked about Peter Gabriel multiple times about just what a massive effect this record had on me. Just you want to talk about just hitting someone at the right moment. It's in our youth, I think, that our teen years, whatever, that where it really shapes our music. And so this just hit me right at the right time. But I've talked about this like 3 different times. I have a whole episode on this album. So okay, enough of that. Another one I think I've referred to a couple times, not as much as so, but U2, The Joshua Tree. This one, massive effect on me. Still one of my all-time favorite records. This showed me, like I said, at least for me, what musical perfection could sound like. To me, this is the perfect record, just production wise, instrumentally, songwriting, even song sequence, especially that side A, first side, is to me is just perfect. Just open, just I can listen to this and get so lost in it. And so that really showed me kind of the depths of what music could do. And I saw them on this tour too. And that was again, thanks to my sister. That was an amazing experience. So yeah, it's kind of hit me at that time in life. All right, I'm going to show 3 here pretty quick. I don't know, these first 2, I haven't talked about in a long time, probably over a year. So yeah, it's been a while. This last one I have brought up fairly recently, but they're all sort of connected in a way. So, obviously I grew up, classic rock, and then of course the '80s music that was happening while I was growing up. That's still my bread and butter. But I do love jazz music. I do love blues music. I do love all kind of other types of acoustic music and sort of Americana and folk and bluegrass. And I do love all these other genres. So I wanted to show you 3 records, kind of real quick in quick succession, that kind of opened me up to these other genres. And again, if we want to call this albums that change your life, or maybe albums that changed your musical life at least. Now I've talked about this one. This is The In Crowd, Ramsey Lewis, The In Crowd, and 1965. Just an incredible live jazz trio. This is still one of my favorite jazz albums. This, well, I say was my dad's because I own it now, but my dad's still alive. But but this is my dad's favorite jazz album, and so yeah, it's got a lot of sentimental value there. But it also is just awesome. And this was the first jazz record I ever had where I fell in love with jazz, and then started a you know lifelong exploration of jazz. Similarly for blues music, this compilation here, the Best of Chess Blues, Volume 1 and 2. Now, actually, I had this on CD forever, and that's what those CDs is when I was a kid. But I found this later on vinyl, so I love to have it on vinyl. But this, it's a 2-volume set, and it's just it's got Muddy Waters and Lowell Fulson, Howlin' Wolf, Little Walter, Elmore James, Sonny Boy Williamson, Otis Rush, Buddy Guy, John Lee Hooker, Etta James, Coco Taylor, Little Milton. I mean, it just, great blues artists who went through that chess roster. This this is foundational for me in appreciating blues music. And there is a there is just this sort of haunting ambiance to the music on this that just to me takes me back. I say takes me back. It's before I was alive when these songs were made, but at least an idealized sort of picture in my mind takes me back to that era, and it's just God, it can still grab me. It's otherworldly because it is. It was a different world when those songs were made. And then the other one, real quick, because I've talked about this fairly recently. Um, Strength in Numbers, the Telluride Sessions, is Bela Fleck's autograph, right? Bela Fleck and Sam Bush and Edgar Meyer, Jerry Douglas, and Mark O'Connor. It's kind of super group of these bluegrass musicians. This blew me away and just opened me up to a whole new area of music. Bela Fleck and the Flecktones and all that. I've talked about that fairly recently. So these three records together just sort of opened up other genres for me beyond my comfort zone of rock and pop and that kind of thing. I will tell you, kind of retell the story briefly of buying this. I was up in Colorado visiting my brother again, and there was a little record store, somewhere, and I just no, actually no, it was more of an instrument store, a bunch of banjos and guitars and stuff. But I had a little record, little CD bin, and so I was in there just looking around, and the store owner picked this up and basically I say almost at gunpoint, but I mean like he wasn't going to let me out of the store unless I bought this. He was basically talking this up, like he's like, you have to have this. This will change your life, man. You have to have this. I was like, okay, I'll buy it. And hey, here's a video about music that changed your life. And here it is. So yeah, this opened me up, and so I don't know. It was less than a year later after I got this summer in Houston with my buddy, the editor, and our friend John. The three of us were looking for something to do, and my friend John was looking at who's playing in Houston, and at this great jazz club that's no longer there, Rockefeller's in Houston. He said this Bela Fleck guy, he's supposed to be like this banjo player. I don't know, man. Let's go do it. And I remember, wait a minute, Bela Fleck was the dude on, and I was like, yeah, let's go see this guy. And man, this is one of the most memorable concert experiences. The editor will agree, right, editor? You can say it down at the bottom. The editor will agree. I don't know if you ever left a concert where you got goosebumps and you're like talking about it, you're actually like shaking. The three of us went to eat dinner, some pancake house or whatever afterwards, and we were all just like, what did we just see? What did we? Anyway, we were hooked, since then. So, but this started that whole thing, at least for me. All right, two more. Now it's kind of interesting because I'm into the 1990s in my life now in our little story, but this is from 1970. So a little bit out of order. But the Grateful Dead. Now this is a song. So I do love this album, American Beauty. I mean, American Beauty is a classic. We're going to do a Grateful Dead week sometime soon, and I'll gush about this album. It's an amazing album. But there's a particular song on here for like music to change your life theme. And that's Box of Rain, the opening track. So here's another story. Me and one of my best buddies, Eric, we've been buddies since we were in elementary school. And we just all started college. But you're still in college in summertime, you still have some time off. And so it was one summer while we were in college. Eric was visiting down in Houston. He moved off somewhere else, but he came back to Houston to visit. His parents still were there. And we decided we're going to drive from Houston up to Colorado, to see my brother again. And so we did. It's just one of those great road trip memories with one of your best friends, hitting the road. Anyway, I wasn't really into the Grateful Dead, even into college. I discovered my love for the Grateful Dead later. Actually, it was because of the story. He was into the Dead, and he brought a cassette tape of American Beauty, for the trip. We brought a bunch of tapes, and one of the tapes he brought was American Beauty. I don't know, and we hadn't listened to it for a while, or we hadn't listened to it yet. And we'd been driving it. Texas takes forever to get out of, and it's pretty boring, especially the Panhandle area of Texas. But we just went over the line, left Texas, and we're getting into New Mexico. And then for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, put in that Grateful Dead tape. And Box of Rain starts right when we see mountains. And, we had been seeing flat, boring Texas for, all day. And this is into the next day because we had spent the night in Amarillo. And just right when Box of Rain cues up, over the horizon are these snow-capped mountains. And that is just one of the most vivid moments in my life. I still hear Box of Rain and I still see those mountains. And to me that shows you, the intersection of music and life moments, and I still love that song for that reason. Well, it's a great song too, but really love that song for that reason. Those triggers in your memory, All right, last one. That's a little bit different because I'm going to just say the whole discography of this band. Because I can't remember an exact which record started it. But this is King Crimson. I'll just pick one here. There's Three of a Perfect Pair because I love that trilogy of 80s King Crimson albums. And I've talked about Discipline enough, so I picked a different one. So how about Three of a Perfect Pair, whatever. But really, this is a stand-in for like the entire discography of King Crimson. The reason I'm doing that, I know this is kind of cheating a little bit, whatever. But the reason I'm doing that is, like I said, I can't remember which King Crimson record started the whole thing, so I'm just going to say the King Crimson discography. I got into them way late. This is around 2016. 8, whatever, I don't know, 7, I can't do math. 7, 8 years ago, whatever it is. And so I had listened to King Crimson before, but it just had never clicked. But for whatever reason, at that point, I got into it and it's like, wow. And I just got obsessed. It was about a year. For about a year, every once in a while, I'd cleanse the palate with something. But pretty much for a year, all I wanted to listen to was King Crimson. I hunted everything down, the entire discography, all those live archives you can get, even the projects, those side projects in the late 90s, everything. And that's all I wanted to hear over and over and over again, just obsessed. And what that showed me is even later in life, because I had given up on this. I was like, I love music, but I'm never going to find anything again that's going to make me feel like that discovery that you used to feel. Until I discovered King Crimson, even though it's way late, but discovered King Crimson. And that made me feel that again. And that showed me that even late in life, music can still draw you in. It can still surprise and thrill and astound. So there you go. All right. There's my entry into the music that changed my life sweepstakes. So, let's talk in the comments. What music has changed your life? Yeah, let's just talk. And again, check out some of these other videos. They've been really good. That's why I kind of inspired to do one of my own. So I hope you've enjoyed this. And yeah, that's it. Well, thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell for notifications, like the video, share the videos. All that really helps us out. And we'll see you next time on Amity Tracks.